Hello everybody, welcome to Nerd Lab. My name is Brian. Today we are doing a deck tech on Wolverine, Best There Is. I want to give out a special shout out to Adam, who submitted this deck, and of course we're still doing our Dominator Remaster Draft Booster Box giveaway. All you gotta do is like, subscribe, and put nerd, N-E-R-D nerd, into the comments down below. But enough with that, let's get back to Wolverine, Best There Is. He is 3 mana, 1, a red, and a green. He is a 2/2 mutant berserk hero. He has an ability called Unrivaled Lethality. Double all damage Wolverine would deal. At the beginning of each instep, if Wolverine dealt damage to another creature this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on him. And also, for 1 and a green, regenerate Wolverine. So let's break these abilities down one by one. First, Unrivaled Lethality, doubling all damage Wolverine would deal. For this deck, this is the most important ability he has because ultimately, this is a fight and bite deck. So we're going to load this deck with lots of spells that let Wolverine do damage to creatures and players, but oh by the way, he can also win through combat damage if need be. He also reads at the beginning of each instep if Wolverine dealt damage to a creature. This turn, put a +1/+1 counter on him. This means we're going to want to use those fight spells on our opponent's turns because it's the beginning of each instep. This is going to give us the best chance to make Wolverine as big as possible, as fast as possible. Now let's talk about Regenerate, since this is Wolverine's actual mutant ability. This is very flavorful, but can be a confusing mechanic. So if this creature would be destroyed or dealt damage, you have to regenerate it while that's still on the stack. And this is important because you're going to draw a lot of hate from the table. But before we can do any of that, we need to get Wolverine out as fast as possible, and the best way to do that is with Ramp. Now this deck does not work without Wolverine in play, so all of our best ramp comes at the cost of 1 mana. We're talking Birds of Paradise, we're talking Llanowar Elves and all the other elves that do the same thing, but we're also talking my favorite, Delighted Halfling. Wolverine not being able to be countered is huge because he is a heat-seeking missile. Our friends don't want him on the board because once we get him on the board, we're using him to remove their stuff. But thankfully, we don't care about what our friends want. If we did, we wouldn't be building this deck. Adam, now let's draw some cards. Card draw. If done right, Wolverine's going to get really big, so we're going to want cards like Rishkar's Expertise, Return of the Wild Speaker, and Season of Gathering. Yes, these cards are 5 and 6 mana, but you're going to be using cards at such a rampant pace, you're going to need to refill your hand as much as possible. And I know we're fighting and biting, but we went ahead and threw in Orin Frostfang and Toski because we will be wanting to attack with this deck. I also really like Season of Growth because all of our fight spells target Wolverine, but also we threw in a couple of auras, they'll do the same. But my favorite is Nayeth of the Dire Hunt. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control fight or become blocked, draw a card. This covers both things that our deck wants to do, but then on top of that, at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay 3, and if you do, double target creature's power until end of turn. Doubling his power is going to be huge with fighting, attacking, and with the card draw spells that we just mentioned. So we got some ramp, we got some card draw, how about our synergy? The first thing we need to do is make Wolverine a big boy. Big boy? He's huge. Branching Evolution, Hardened Scales, and my favorite, Ozlith the Shattered Spire. The only thing better than 1/+1/+1 counter is 2/+1/+1 counters, and Ozlith not only enhances that ability, but also puts counters on him by itself. I also really like Kami of Whispered Hopes. Not only does it help with the +1/+1 counter synergy, but it gives us some much needed mana. One of my favorite things about this deck is that you're constantly doing something, but you do need the mana to do it. But now that we got Wolverine big, it's time to fight. Bushwhack, Charge Through, and my favorite, Uvenvold Tracker. Repeatable effects are huge in this deck, and if you can get a card like Seedborn Muse out, then you can fight on every single turn. We also threw in a small combat damage package, Rogue's Passage, Trailblazer's Boost, and of course Champion of Lambhold. Now I love Champion of Lambhold, and even though we're not going to have a ton of creatures coming in, the +1/+1 package is going to really make her work well. But that's enough fiddling and pee-diddling around. It's time to get to our win con. If we can get Wolverine up to 20 power, then I love Chandra's Ignition. Not only does it target our creature and it's a board wipe, but Wolverine's going to be dealing the damage, so it's going to double. And as much as I love that spell, my favorite is Mecodes Emberclaw Familiar. As long as you can get through with 11 combat damage from Wolverine, which isn't hard, he's going to double that. And that's lethal commander damage. Mecodes is going to see that and double that once more to the rest of the table. That means you take an 11 power Wolverine, sneak him into the life gain player and kill him with commander damage, and then deal 44 damage to the rest of your opponents. Not too shabby. Well, there it is, folks. Wolverine, best there is. Thanks again for listening. Please correct me in the comments down below, or just say hey, and until next time, embrace the chaos.